Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to studentloanjustice.org. We are doing a rare in-studio live stream tonight here on Sunday evening, July 13th. With me tonight is a very special guest, our California State Chapter leader, Lisa Ansel, who also is a professor at the University of Southern California Kasdan Institute. So, Lisa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Alan. It's great to be here.
Just quickly, I just want to bring everybody through kind of the weekly update. The big, beautiful bill passed. It's terrible. We'll talk about that in a minute. There is going to be a lot of pain coming for all student loan borrowers very soon, not only as a result of this terrible bill, which we'll talk about, but also some other things that the Trump administration is doing. So I want to give, first of all, Lisa a shout out. Lisa was able to get a really good article published at the Jewish Journal this past week. And let me see if I can just dial in the headline for you. So I really like this article. Lisa talked a lot about the need to revamp our public service loan forgiveness program, which I agree is completely needed. What's most important to me, what I love the most, obviously, is that she called for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. So for those of you out there who are maybe new to our group, we've been looking at this thing for 20 years, guys, and the structural, foundational failure with student loans is the absence of bankruptcy leverage that exists for all other loans. So I was really glad to see that. But, you know, this thing about public service, I should say, and this is a longer conversation, but sort of, so the history with public service loan forgiveness is terrible. The first public service loans were supposed to start being canceled in 2017. And I can show you a couple of articles, maybe when Lisa's talking about that. But let me just say that we saw vanishingly few people in the first 3, 4, 5 years of that program make it through. And maybe, Lisa, you can just talk a little bit about the problems that you personally had with public service and maybe some of the larger issues as well.
Sure, Alan. And, you know, it's great to be here. I'll start out this conversation by saying that I'm about 4 years out of my debt servitude.
Congratulations, by the way.
But it's a double-edged sword because I'm a debt slavery survivor. And anyone who's survived a trauma of any kind, a life-altering trauma, is left with a lifetime of both scarring of many forms. And even though I'm 4 years out of my debt cancellation, I still very much viscerally feel the secondary and tertiary effects of what my years lost to this unconstitutional scam have the marks they've left on my life that I will most likely not recover from. So with that in mind, a little bit about my story. Like Alan just mentioned, you know, the first cohort of public servants who were in theory eligible for debt cancellation were coming to fruition in 2017 because the public service loan forgiveness program was passed in 2007. I was one of those people. I started my career in public service right after graduate school. I went to teaching at a private high school, and I was there for several years. And then I transitioned into higher education. So I remained in the educational space throughout my professional career. I did everything by the book. I filled out all of the paperwork. I had my boss sign my forms. I made sure that all of my payments were submitted properly and on time. I did everything according to the guidelines that then Fed Loan Servicing, now Mohila, the terms that they dictated. I had no reason to doubt my eligibility for PSLF because I had no gaps in the years of my public service in a nonprofit. And I had always made on-time payments. And so when 2017 comes around and I submit my application for PSLF, I was categorically denied without any explanation. I mean, there was some sort of garbled language of your payment counts are wrong, something like that, which I knew couldn't have been the case. I said, oh, well, I should just call them. That should take like 5 minutes. So
Became
I say
5
this
hours, became 5
right.
days.
I say this
Right?
because that the expectation that one has in terms of customer service on the phone is one should not have such expectations of decency and normalcy when dealing with student loan issues. So every phone call turned into at least a 2-hour wait on hold, multiple times being hung up on and then having to start the process all over again. And to sort of make a long story short, over the course of about 3 years, I received 7 denials. Now, the reasons for my denials ranged for, we believe there's an error in your payment count, to you used blue ink instead of black ink, to you did not dot an I on, my name, something like that.
And there's also annual employment certification forms, right? That's a whole nother
Correct.
bunch of administration that you have to go through. And by the way, Lisa's not the only person who saw her forms denied because of the wrong color, literally the wrong color of ink on the pen. These are the stupid reasons that the servicers will look to in order to kick as many people out of these programs as possible.
It's all just a ruse. My employment certification forms were always turned in punctually. I never missed a single one. I started to get the sense that they were looking for reasons to deny me. And then I started digging online, and then I found student loan justice. I was wondering, I said, why is it that what am I missing here in this process? I'm turning in everything on time. There are no gaps in my employment. What is it that I must be doing wrong? Because my experience with government agencies, as challenging as they may be, are what the DMV, where ultimately you receive an end product, right?
Right.
So, I started digging and I found student loan justice, and I started listening to live streams, reading, and, connecting with people. And it occurred to me that I was part of a larger system characterized by dysfunction and fraud. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. Ultimately, my loans were canceled in 2021. While I don't have that monthly bill anymore, the years of wealth building that I've lost because I never was granted my loan cancellation, not forgiveness, cancellation, in 2017, completely eroded my chances of home ownership where I live.
Right. It puts you behind the 8 ball in the first inning, to mix my metaphors a little bit. And yeah,
my loans had my loans been canceled when they should have in 2017, I would have had a chance at perhaps getting into the housing market before the pandemic. And we all know that since the pandemic, housing prices have jumped as much as 60% nationwide. So here I am, stuck in permanent rentership because I was robbed of my wealth building time in my life because of the scam that I fell victim to. And I am by no means unique in this. There are unfortunately millions of people engaged in public service who are due their lawful cancellation, but who have been denied because of bogus reasons, all stemming from the fact that the Department of Education has no desire and really no real incentive to cancel loans as long as the constitutional right of bankruptcy remains removed from these loans. I'll rest here.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And to those of you who maybe are just now starting to pay attention to this whole disaster, during Trump's administration, and this is we're a nonpartisan group. We hate both parties, but during Trump's first administration, hopefully you saw the couple of headlines that I just threw up there. This is the sort of purposeful administrative bungling that we saw all through Trump's first 4 years, through much of Joe Biden's term until the very end. They finally started canceling a few loans. And, Lisa's tale is actually one of the success stories. So with all the damage that it did to you, and you're actually one of the lucky few who made it through. So only a fool would think that over these next 4 years and well beyond, as things are going right now, I don't see more than a handful of people getting their loans canceled through public service loan forgiveness, through income contingent repayment. We're clearly and obviously going back to the bad old days where, they're going to deny you for using the wrong color ink. Maybe you literally didn't dot an I or cross a T, who knows? This is the bad faith with which the Department of Education has always run these loan programs. And so I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here. What we're seeing, not as a part of the big, beautiful bill, but as a part of some other stuff we're hearing about Trump wanting to do, not so much Trump as the people below him. They're going to start finagling the nonprofit statuses of organizations in terms of eligibility for public service fitness. So, for example, if they find something that a nonprofit engages in quote unquote substantial illegal activities, well, they can knock that nonprofit out of the mix for public service loan forgiveness. Now, that could go very broadly because, think about the city of Los Angeles, right? They're doing a sanctuary city thing. Well, the Trump people could decide that that's illegal, and all of a sudden, the entire city of Los Angeles and their staff are no longer eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Suppose a hospital does, I don't know, gender affirming care, something that the Trump administration decides they don't like. Well, all of a sudden they can knock out the number of people who should qualify for public service probably by half or more, I would think, if they wanted to. And make no mistake, the department, you said it perfectly, Lisa, the Department of Education, they have no desire or intentions of canceling any student loans if they can find a way not to. And that's just was abundantly clear on Trump's first term. Sort of grudgingly, they canceled a few loans during Biden's term, but we are absolutely back to the bad old days now. And
and let's actually, Alan, let's put some statistics on that. It was, when we talk about the bad old days that are unfortunately the present, once again, we were talking about a 99.9% rejection rate for PSLF applicants. Under the best case scenario during the Biden administration, the highest percentage of public servants who were able to get their loans successfully canceled was 9%. So
less than 1 in 10.
Right. So if you look at that in the inverse, a 9% success rate, right, means a 91% failure rate.
Yes.
So even under the Biden administration, the best we saw was a 9% at its peak. was a 9% success rate. Now, what that should tell everybody is just how committed and vested both parties are to the perpetuation of this loan scam.
Absolutely. You know, it's like that for many aspects of the student loan program. Like right now, 3 out of 4 of student loan borrowers are not able to make payments. Um, uh, Student loan rehabilitation, which is something that they're going to be pushing on defaulted borrowers very soon. The redefault rate for that is like 80%. So if the chances of you making it through public service are 1 in 10, and the chances of your rehabilitated loan defaulting again is like, 80, if not 90%. I mean, what are we even talking about here? I think we're talking about a failed lending program that cannot be allowed to continue. We've been saying this forever, folks. Now that the president legally cannot cancel student loans by executive order, there is only one path. There's only one avenue forward legislatively that's even worth pursuing. And that is the return of the standard bankruptcy rights that should have never been taken away in the first place. So that has been our prime focus for the 20 years we've been doing this. It remains our focus, and it's more important than ever. But the good news is, and I know everybody out there is going, I don't want to file for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy's terrible. Yeah, that's gross. Can we just do cancellation instead? Yeah, and I totally get that. But the good thing is, ladies and gentlemen, is that when we do get the leverage of bankruptcy rights back, as they exist for all other loans, they're going to have to cancel loans as a preemptive measure. So here's what people don't understand. So the banks largely control Congress, the JP Morgan Chase, Citibanks, Wall Street, that whole thing. The banks absolutely do not want to see a mass wave of bankruptcy filings, even on student loans, even if they don't do student loans. Because if, 5 million people file for bankruptcy on their student loans, they're probably going to take their other loans, their credit cards, who knows what other lines of credit they may have out. They're going to take their other loans into those bankruptcies, and that will severely impact the big commercial banks on their other loan products. So politically speaking, when we get the leverage of bankruptcy rights returned, all the big banks are going to turn on a dime, and they're going to start calling for what we've been calling for forever, which is meaningful loan cancellation, number one, but also, a reduction in interest, a knocking off of interest, negotiated unique one-on-one negotiated settlements with the borrowers, and many other administrative fixes. Like for example, when they return bankruptcy rights, I guarantee you that all the outstanding borrower defense to repayment claims, BDR claims, borrower defense to repayment claims, they will start approving those left and right. They will start approving public service loan forgiveness applications left and right, because they know that if they don't, we're going to see a wave of bankruptcy filings that would make 1929 look like a walk in the park compared to what we'd likely see. I mean, it would be the largest wave of bankruptcy filings by a lot in U.S. history. So this is the true value of fighting for the return of bankruptcy rights. Nobody gets that. And I say, no. It's not that we want everybody to run out and file. Very few people will wind up filing for bankruptcy. And really nobody will even have to enjoy the benefits of that leverage. There's a very good reason the founding fathers called for bankruptcy rights in the Constitution. And to that end, I know we've been really down this broadcast, and everybody's probably they're feeling very disenfranchised, demoralized, and discouraged right now. But I will say we've seen some very good things over the past 2 to 3 weeks. And let me see if I can just dial in a couple of examples for you here. So 3 weeks ago, well, let me go back even further. A about a month ago, Joe Rogan, conservative, I guess, MAGA sort of guy, endorsed Donald Trump anyways. I don't know if he calls himself Republican. Joe Rogan pointed out the fact that student loans were uniquely non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, and he called it the dirtiest thing ever. Hopefully you can see that. Well, that was pretty good. Then, like a week after that, so this would be 2 weeks ago, roughly, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, said, and he's a very measured guy, but in his modest way, he said, I have to question if this is wise policy, making student loans uniquely non-dischargeable. So there are some very organic groundswell type events happening under our feet as we speak right now. Oh, another very good one was just a couple days after Jerome Powell said his thing. Donald Trump's crypto czar in the White House, David Sachs, he very strongly called for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. So these are all Republicans that we're talking about here, all sort of conservative leaning people. So there's a good reason to be hopeful. I know in a sea of terrible things to be hateful and fearful about, there at least is that. And so I would just urge everybody out there, if you don't know what to do, the first thing you should do is join us in the fight for the return of bankruptcy rights to the loans. We're making great strides. We're seeing a groundswell of support, but after 20 years of doing this and 20 years of success being taken from our lips right at the verge of glory, I can tell you guys, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be a very difficult battle. And Lisa, you've been with us at every step in the way, particularly with that bankruptcy bill in 2022. Can you just maybe tell the people how difficult it was to get that through and everything that happened?
Right. As a precursor to this, bless you, I recommend, if you haven't already, please watch the documentary Lone Wolves by Blake Zeff. Really fantastic documentary. Alan is actually featured in this documentary. Lone Wolves traces the history of, maybe Alan, if you want to put some information up on Lone Wolves.
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now. Go ahead.
Yeah. Of bankruptcy protections, sort of a whodunit, a sort of a path to understanding how bankruptcy protections, first from federal student loan debt and then from private student loans, came to a place where they were removed. And it wasn't one isolated incident. It was a series. It was a progression of legislation that resulted in both federal and private student loans being completely removed from student loan, uniquely removed from student loan debt. So this film traces the origin of the disappearance of bankruptcy protections, and ultimately culminates with a piece of legislation that we were really, really championing to restore bankruptcy protections to student loan debt. It wasn't a perfect bill, but it had solid elements to it. I believe there was a 10-year waiting period. There was a clawback provision from the colleges, which was more nominal in nature anyway. The bill had all of the elements that one thought necessary to successfully pass.
And bipartisan support, by the way.
Bipartisan support. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but we're here in 2025. So as you know, not only did the bill not pass, it was never actually even brought up for a vote. And so
they pulled the rug out from under us at the 11th hour. They didn't tell us they weren't going to do it until I think December 21st or something like that.
It was right before the end of the year.
Yeah,
and we were working so hard. We were meeting with politicians across the aisle. I hosted several events at my university. We left no stone unturned. We had all of our chapter presidents engaged with this. We were writing articles, letters to the editor. interviewing people, meeting with our representatives, meeting
Getting
with
on national TV, on even on Fox News to talk about
we
it.
did everything we could as a grassroots organization, as a nonpartisan grassroots organization, to build a groundswell of support. And I want to mention that it was the Democrats that let us down on this.
It was those dirty dog Democrats. I have to tell you, I ran for president after that happened. I was so pissed. It was the dirty dog Democrats. Sorry, guys. As I said, we're a fiercely nonpartisan group. We don't. I personally can't stand the Republicans, but it's kind of a good cop, bad cop thing. The good cop may say more pleasant things, but at the end of the day, yeah, they pulled the rug out. So that really opened my eyes. We got to fight way harder than we fought before, guys. That's just a fact.
So that, I mean, I'm going to also, that was the moment that I left the Democratic Party and became an independent.
And how did the election go for them in 2024? It didn't go well.
Because that was a moment that for me illustrated so clearly that the student loan scam was deeply rooted in corruption in both parties. And so, when people ask me, why I'm independent, it's because I will never again give blind allegiance to a party that has been entirely corrupted by financial interests. And so I urge all of you to look at the candidates and the issues of the moment and look behind the red and the blue for the shades of gray.
I would go even further than that. I would urge everybody to not vote for an R or a D. Abandon the uniparty. It's out to get us, ladies and gentlemen. They are collectively the biggest threat to this country, in my humble opinion. So, Lisa, thank you. I know we're running a little bit late tonight, a little bit longer than I promised. So I apologize for that. But I hope you people out there have gotten something out of this interview. It's very important that you stand up and fight. And by that, I mean primarily fight for the return of bankruptcy rights. Absolutely. But get engaged.
Email your senators, email your congressional representatives, and demand that they support the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. And this is not a partisan issue, despite the partisan overhang that has so unfortunately come to characterize this issue. This is an American tragedy. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an American tragedy, and we all need to do our part to force our representatives who work for us to listen to our voices and to demand that the Constitution be equally applied to student loan debt.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's our strongest argument. It's our best argument. And right now, fighting for the leverage of bankruptcy is really the only thing worth doing. And so good things will come of this, I believe, Lisa. I am eternally hopeful. These past few weeks have, despite the big, beautiful bill, have made me far more hopeful than I've been in years on this issue. So hopefully the next live stream we do will be maybe a little bit more upbeat and optimistic, and we'll have some better news to share. But Lisa, thank you very much. You're welcome here anytime. Hopefully I was able to show your article at the Jewish Journal. Let me just dial that in one last time before we leave so you can see it for yourself. And I'm looking forward to this year. I hope everybody out there finds some hope. Any last words for the people who maybe weren't quite so fortunate as you, Lisa, who are looking up this public service mountain and just feeling all the energy come out of them?
Keep meticulous records of everything that you do, of every communication that you have, of every dropped call. Take screenshots of the 3-hour phone waits. Any communication that you receive, keep it, and make sure that you're doing your part in insisting that your local representatives hear your voice on this issue. We have to start locally and build nationally from there. And every voice matters. Don't think that just because you're one in millions that your voice will be drowned out. You be a sticky wheel, call your representatives and insist that they learn about this issue and that we would be glad to help educate them.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Lisa. We stand at the ready to back up hopefully any and all claims that you make that we can. We will come into any meeting. We will drop into any phone conference that you might set up. We got your back, but it starts with you. It always has. It always will. So if you set them up, we'll come in and we'll help knock them down. Well said, Lisa. And thanks again for joining us tonight. I'll be back. It'll be a busy week. Stay tuned. Lisa Ansell, hopefully, if you need her contact info, I can get it to you if you need it. And we'll see you soon, guys. Good luck, Godspeed, and God bless you.
Strength in numbers.
Absolutely.